Hey, what's up? Justin here. Welcome to 65 Drums. Today I want to do a versus video between the Roland TD50K and the Roland TD50KV. A bunch of people have been asking me to do a versus video, a comparison between the two. On the one hand, it looks kind of obvious. You just put two pictures of this on the screen and you can see all the differences. But what isn't so obvious is whether or not those upgrades from the K to the KV version, whether or not those upgrades are a big enough deal to actually spend the extra $2,000 in order to get the Roland TD50KV over the K. That's what we're going to get into today. Now, the interesting thing about Roland's flagship line is that they haven't always had a consistent formula from generation to generation. If we go back to their first modern flagship, the TD10, I know there were drum sets before that like the Roland Alpha and stuff like that, but the Roland TD10 was kind of sort of like the first modern flagship that looks like most electronic drum sets out today. And that drum set, you had the Roland Session kit, the TD10 Session, and you had the TD10 stage kit. I believe that's what it was called. So in that case, these two flagships were drastically different from each other. And then you move on to the TD20 era, and what Roland decided to do then was make a dumbed down version of the drum module and have different pads. So they had the actual legit, Roland cymbals, and they had some pads that were pretty decent, a little on the small side, and so that's how they divided the flagship versus the one that was just a step below that. On the Roland TD30 line, the next generation after that, I bought the Roland TD30K version because I was excited that I would be able to buy the best drum module there was at like a less than $7,000 price tag. And with the Roland TD50, the reason why this decision between these two drum sets, the reason why this is a little bit harder is because both drum sets have the exact same drum module, they both have the exact same snare, and they also have the exact same ride cymbal. As you can see from the previous generations of these flagships, the step-down version and the flagship version, there were very clear-cut differences between both of those sets that always kind of made the obvious choice to be, the flagship version. But in this case, you have the exact same snare, the exact same ride cymbal, and the exact same drum module. I first got a chance to play the Roland TD50K, and I played that around 4 to 5 times. I played it over and over and over again. And by the time I finally found a music store that had a Roland TD50KV, the KV version really didn't blow me away, honestly. It's obviously the much better drum set, but the biggest impact is the fact that it has the digital ride and snare. And those can both be found on the cheaper version. I've gone really in depth on the inner workings of both of these pads in previous videos, so I don't want to dwell on that. The main reason why I like the snare is because it's incredibly accurate. It's a lot easier to do cross stick because it can sense the static electricity in your hand. Also, it has a really nice 3-ply mesh head. That's one of the better mesh heads I've ever played on any drum set ever. It's right up there with some of my favorite mesh heads now. The ride cymbal, the reason why I like it so much is because it's 18 inches across. There aren't a lot of options for 18-inch electronic ride cymbals. And also the bell, you don't have to smack it really hard in order for the switch inside of it to be flipped. So you can tap it really lightly and the bell will recognize that. But of course there are a ton of real differences between these two drum sets. There's got to be some reason for that extra $2,000 in order to buy the KV version. So let's talk about those for a second. Number one, the tom pads. The tom pads on the KV version are a little bit larger. The two floor toms are 12 inches across, and all of the tom pads have removable shell wraps. They look really cool with that dark chrome finish already, but you can go online, buy your own shell wraps, and I think Roland even sells a few that you can buy too. So there's a lot of cool options in order to customize the look of the drum set. The interesting thing about this is that the high toms in both these sets are the exact same size. 10 inches across. Obviously, the KV version one is a little more high end, but they're the exact same size and they're using the exact same mesh heads. And honestly, I'm really baffled as to the reasoning behind not going with all 3-ply mesh heads on at least the KV version. That would have been one clear distinction between both drum sets. The K version just has 2-ply heads on the toms and the kick, but the KV version gives you 3-ply mesh heads on all the toms and their kick drum. It's not even made by the same company that makes their 2-ply mesh heads. It feels different. It has a much more acoustic-like rebound. It's not the best mesh head there is on the entire market, but it's right up there and it feels incredibly nice to play on. So I wish all the mesh heads on at least the KV version were 3-ply. Again, that's probably going to be something we're going to see a couple years down the road whenever they get around to releasing another iteration of this. So next up is the drum rack. Both these sets obviously have different drum racks. The KV version is a lot heavier duty. It's incredibly heavy to move around. And also it's all chrome, it just looks way cooler. It's a little bit larger. And the fact that it has clear cables, so they sort of blend in with the overall look. The K version, however, is nice as well. I have a version of that on the Roland TD30K. I believe the only difference between the TD50K drum rack and the TD30K drum rack is I believe the TD50K drum rack is slightly taller so that both of these can accommodate a 22-inch kick drum. Alright, so let's move on to the kick drum pads. On the one hand, the K version has a 12-inch playing surface, the other one has a 14-inch playing surface. I have the K version, and it's a very nice kick drum pad. No complaints, it does the job, and it does it incredibly well. Even if you break through that mesh head and damage the inner foam cone, it still works, it's a champion, it does the job. However, it's not on the same level or in the same class as the KV version. This is probably the best electronic kick drum pad there is out there in the market. It feels incredibly solid. It feels like you're playing on a boulder. This thing is very, very heavy. There are other kick drums that are like the exact same size and they look really similar to this one, but they're nowhere near as heavy. And that's the thing. If you have a giant kick drum, but it's very light, that means it's going to move around, it's going to scoot around, and it's not going to feel like you're playing on a 22-inch bass drum. The Roland KV version, this one gets really, really close to accomplishing that feeling. It's one of the nicer upgrades between the TD50K and the KV, honestly. Just take a look at the price tag of both of these drum pads. The KV version is like over $1,000 just if you want to buy one kick drum pad. This is one of my favorite upgrades, and my second favorite upgrade are the new cymbals. So on the Roland TD50KV, they're the exact same cymbals. They don't have a fancy chrome finish or whatever. They don't have anything special about them. They're just like 2 inches larger or so on average versus the TD50K cymbals. The hi-hats, however, are completely different. The TD50K has the VH11 hi-hat. The Roland TD50KV has the VH13 hi-hat. The main difference between those two hi-hat cymbals is the fact that the VH13, that thing has two pieces, so it feels more like an acoustic cymbal. The VH11 though is a rock star. I've been using it for quite a long time. On first glance, they do feel kind of similar. It actually took me a second to realize I wasn't playing a VH11 when I first played the TD50KV. I knew it in my head, but I kind of forgot while I was playing it. But the more I used it, the nicer it was to play. The other upgrade is that it gives you some more degrees of expressiveness, so you can actually do some pitch bending as you press harder and harder on the hi-hat stand. You get more degrees of expressiveness with the VH13 versus the VH11. So if we take a step back and look at both of these sets as a whole, I'd have to say my favorite upgrades on the KV version are the cymbals because they are larger, that makes them more fun to play on, and of course the VH13 hi-hat. And my second favorite upgrade is gotta be that kick drum pad. The cooler looking tom pads that are slightly larger, that's a nice upgrade, but it's not like my favorite thing about the set. Also the drum rack, it's a lot larger and it looks cooler, but it's still not my favorite thing. It's the kick drum and the cymbals that get me most excited about the KV version. So believe it or not, there are a ton of guys that are in this situation where they have enough money to buy either one of these drum sets, no problem. It won't kill them when they go to the bank to withdraw that money. I would buy the Roland TD50K version, because it just gives you pretty much all the main perks of the KV version. It just looks a little bit less flashy, and some of the pads are a little bit smaller. What a lot of people forget is that you're not locked into the pads you have on the drum set. You can always go sell those tom pads and buy upgraded ones from the TD50KV later on, or the TD30KV, because those look really, really similar, and the guts inside are very similar as well. The kick drum on both those sets are exactly the same. So if you wanted to go buy an old Roland TD30KV kick drum, you could buy it. It's the exact same pad, it just has a slightly different coat of paint on it. And obviously you can always upgrade the cymbals later on by buying some ATV ones, some Roland ones, some Pintec ones. There are a lot of choices out there. But on the other hand, if you have money coming out of your ears, if you got a $10,000 bonus check yesterday and you just don't know how to spend it, the TD50KV will help you with that. But of course, I don't want to leave anyone with the impression that the Roland TD50KV is the end-all be-all of all electronic drum sets. There are other options in this range of the best of the best. On the one hand, you could buy a shell pack from ATV. It comes with the cymbals, the hardware, and the pads, and you can buy it without the drum module. So you can slap a Mimic module on there, and now you have something that would compete with the Roland TD50KV. If you go to the website drumtech.com, they have a ton of great drum sets that are more acoustic sizes, and it just looks amazing, and they use some of the best trigger components inside their pads. So if you're looking for the best of the best, go take a look at DrumTech as well. There are other options out there if you look around. Alright, so that's the video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If any of you actually own the TD50K or KV, leave a little mini review down in the comments below. It's always interesting to hear from actual owners that have played live with it or spent like 100 hours playing it, because you get a completely different perspective after using it for weeks and months at a time. Leave your thoughts down in the comments below. Really interested to read those. Hope you guys have an amazing day, and I'll see you in a few.